welcome back to my channel. Today I'm starting a new little series called Beginners Paint and Stitch. Now you may have seen my previous paint and stitch. This one I did with all my wildflowers, and I put it onto this hexagon crazy journal. I'll have a link here to this video and you can go back and check that out. But I would call this a little bit more advanced sort of paint and stitch. But today I want to bring you right back to some basics, and I want to show you how you can just do some really basic paint and stitching. I've got all these pieces of fabric. This was a 50-cent pillowcase, and I tore it up into just little manageable project size pieces. Approximately I think they were 6 by 9, and it got me quite a few pieces of fabric out of one 50-cent pillowcase from the Opshop. Alright, I've also got a silicone mat which I'm just going to lay down on my surface here, and that's just going to waterproof the felt surface. Now this whole series I'm going to be working with this stencil. If you're interested in this stencil, I'll have the link here in my description box, and you can pop over and see that. I bought this stencil from Temu, and if you don't like shopping with Temu, you can use whatever stencil that you like. Now we need to talk about paints and thread, because you know, if you don't have a stencil, you could make a stencil. Stencils are so easy to make, just with some plastic and a blade. Okay, so anything like that can be made yourself. Right, I'm going to explain to you about the water and the paints and then the threads. I only use the tiniest amount of water when I paint and stitch, because it's what's called a dry brush technique. Now the paint brushes that I use, these aren't paint brushes. You could use some paint brushes. I would use a soft flat bristled paintbrush, but what I'm using today is, and through this series, are these really fine precision blender pens, or their brushes, and they're for ink blending, and they've got really dense soft bristles on them. Okay, I've also bought these off Temu. I'll try and put the link below for them as well, and they're similar to these type of ink blending brushes. They're very dense hair on them, but they're nice soft hair. Okay, I'm not sure what the fiber is. I'm sure it'd be some sort of synthetic fiber. So they're the brushes that I use. I like to use a sponge. This is just a little paint sponge that you can take water off and stuff like that. I bought that from Temu too. I'll have a link below for that. I have a washer sitting here just in case I need to take off excess water, and like I said, just a tiniest little amount. There's only that much in the bottom of this little cup, and I put all this then in a little wet tray. I call it my wet tray. Now the paints that I prefer to use are the Duet Inktense blocks. This is the big 72 set. Okay, you can get smaller sets. This one was around 110, I think, or 130, something like that. It was over the 100 mark, and they are quite expensive, but they are worth every single penny. Now this 72 set comes in 2 different layers of colors like this, and you've just got, I did a swatch. I printed this off the internet, swatched out my colors. I put that through the laminator and stuck it to the inside of my lid, so then I can sit it up in front of me and I can see what the colors actually look like. Because if you look at some of these, they don't quite look like what they turn out on, you know, because they look a lot darker when they're sitting here in their block shapes. So also what I did, if you invest in this 72 pack or even a smaller pack, I got a piece of paper, and because if you look at the Inktense blocks, I'll just grab one out for you. You can see that they have an impression of, it says do it in inktense, and it says England on this side, but on this side it has the color number. Okay, but once you start using that, here's one I've been using, that disappears. Okay, because it's just an impression in the pigment. So because some of these, if you're not worried about that, don't worry about it. But because some of these are very hard to differentiate the color in here because it's so dense in the blocks, what I did was I got a piece of paper, I cut it to the size of this edging on my pack here, because it sits in a plastic edging, plastic, what do you call it, container that sits in the tin. So I cut a strip of paper the size of this edging, because there was a space here on either edge, and I just drew the color to the corresponding one and put the number down the edge here, because then when the number disappears on here after I've used it, I can still see that that's the number here. And I've found that so helpful. But if you're not worried about that, don't do it. Whatever floats your boat with that. But I like to correspond my colors with my blocks, and I didn't want to lose that number correspondence. Okay, so another thing to keep in mind with inktense is that they are permanent. Once you put them on and they dry, it's a permanent ink. So I really love that about the inktense blocks, because then I can dye thread or anything that matches that color. Okay, if you don't have inktense blocks, you could try using, I'm going to just do a quick experiment here to see if this could work. I'm going to try using just a little bit of watercolor. I have in the past, you know, I've used watercolor on fabric, and I just want to see whether it could work, because, you know, not everyone can afford the inktense blocks. They also do come in pencils. I think the pencils would be a little harder to use with this technique, but you could get the pigment off the end of the pencils. So I'm just going to give this, I'm just using some washi tape here to mask it off, and what I'm going to do is just give this a little try with some watercolor paints. Now just remember, they won't be permanent. Okay, so if you plan to wash, you may need to add something like a sealer over the top of it, but if you're not going to wash it, it doesn't matter. But don't use this if you plan on getting it wet or whatever. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to, this is just an experiment to see if this could work. Okay, I'm going to do, and I'm not, what I'm doing is I'm putting my brush in the water, and I'm patting off nearly all of that water. Okay, so when I touch this, it's just wet. I'm not wetting any of my watercolor palette. This is a dry watercolor palette, and then I would go in and pick some color up like that, and then I would put it on. And this is just an experiment to see if this could work and give you a cheap alternative to the watercolor blocks. If you don't have those watercolor blocks and you're not wanting to wash it, this could be a cheap alternative for you. So let's see if this could work, because I'll show you the inktense as well and how that reacts on the fabric. So I'm just going to do a few different colors here, because just to see how they react on the fabric. Because like I said, I have painted before with watercolors on fabric and it turned out okay. but I haven't used it with stencils, so that could be something a little bit different. Let's do another colour. And I'm not going to stitch this, I'm just going to see how this reacts, because I haven't tried this experiment, so it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. Right, let's go over to some yellow. Now please don't do this with wet paint. If you do, you have to take nearly all of your paint back off, nearly all of it, to get it to work off the brush. You need a very dry brush with this technique. Now let's see how that came up, because I just want to see if there's bleed underneath the stencil. Now this, remember, this is just, they're just regular watercolor paints. Okay, so let's take the stencil off. Yeah, okay, there is a little bit of bleed. Okay, so I'm going to show you as well with the inktense colors. Now I'm just going to iron this too, because remember we've just used the tiniest amount of water here. You know, this could work, even though there's a little bit of bleed underneath. You could get a really pretty look. Now I should have masked up the stencil here. I've got a mark here on it. Okay, that's my watercolor picture here. The color is not as intense. I'll show you now with the inktense, but if you don't have inktense blocks, you can get a similar result. Okay, don't think you have to have those inktense colors. I just love them. That's why I bought them, and I wanted to dye things with them. So let's have another go with the exact same flower, and we will use the inktense colors. I'll mask that up so we don't go over that this time. Okay, let's get our inktense colors out. And let's try some of that. Now, you have to keep in mind too that inktense, they do stain. Because they're a permanent colour, they will stain your brushes, but that's okay. I try to designate a brush for a colour or a colour family, and that way you won't have any problems, right? So I'm going to start with some inktense here, and I will show you the difference when we get going. I'll make sure I've got a lot of that water off. Tiniest little bit of water on. Now you need the water to activate the inktense colors, okay, but you don't need a lot. Alright, let's do a different color on here now. And we're going to mop off a lot of that water. I like to start on the stencil and go off onto the fabric, That way your brush doesn't go under that stencil. Let's go to another colour. Let's change up and go to another colour. We got blue. We haven't got a designated blue one yet. Haven't used blue with the Inktense blocks yet. Need just a little bit more water. Just remember to go very easy on your water. It's the only tiniest little bit that you need. Alright, let's change up and go to a nice purple colour. Right, let's go to orange. And for the middle, let's go to a green, which is under here. Right, let's just put them aside and let's show you the Inktense. Right, you can see the difference. There's worlds of difference. So let's give that an iron. And it doesn't take long to dry it because you're using such little water. Okay, that's almost dry now. That's dry. All right, now there is another paint that I wanted to try. Okay, I'm just doing this to show you that you can use other paints, you can use other things. Right, I've got out my acrylics. I'm just going to put the smallest amount in here. These are ones that I use on my gel plate. Now remember, they won't be waterproof. So you've got to keep that in mind on what sort of project that you want to use it on. Okay, this is already damp. Okay, this, and I'll put this back on. And we'll move that up. Because I just want to show you some different paints in case you don't have Inktense, so that you can see that, yeah, you could still do this project, but it might not turn out quite the same. Right, so I'm just going to I've got the tiniest amount of acrylic in here, and I'm just going to dab my brush in and then take nearly all of that back off. See how I'm just getting just a little bit of colour on, and then I'm going to put that on. It's the tiniest amount of pigment on my brush. Wash that out really well. And then I'll change colour. Let's go to the yellow. And I'm putting my brush in the water, just dabbing it all off. Just dabbing it just slightly in that yellow. And then taking nearly all of that paint back off. I don't know what that was that got on there. Oh, it's a bit of fluff. Oh, we got so much fluff in here. Okay, and I'm just picking up that paint, just the tiniest amount of paint. And it's got the tiniest amount of water. Okay. Wash that out well, because I don't want that to be full of acrylic paint. And what else have we got here? A green one. I've already got some. My green here is already damp, so I'm just touching that green paint, and then I'm going to take nearly all of that back off. Nearly all of it. I'm just finding that a little bit harder to blend. I'm just sort of observing what the paint does and how it's going to react onto the fabric. What do you got? Blue. This blue's already damp, so I'm just going to, like the other ones, just touch that and take nearly all of that blue back off. And with the acrylic, I'm sort of more doing a dabbing motion to get that on to the fabric. And what do we got now? Let's do pink again. We'll go around the circle. I'll put some more yellow on. I can go back into that yellow that I had over here. Each sort of paint is going to give you a different feel, a different look, a different texture on the fabric. It's going to blend different, so you have to keep all that in mind. Let's put a little bit of this green into the middle. Okay, and wash them well. Okay, so this one is acrylic paint, and that's how it has come up. I'll give you a look. It didn't blend as well, but it's still giving you a similar sort of effect. And because we have so little water on there, it is going to dry just as quick as the others. Alright, so these are 3 different paints. Let's grab my pen. Oops. Where is it? And we're going to write on there what we have done. Okay, so this one was watercolor. Watercolor. Okay, and this one here was our inktense. How do you spell it? T-E-N-S-E. Okay. And this one here was our acrylic paint. Right, so that gives you an idea of what these paints can do. just bearing in mind that this one, all right, on here is color fast. Color fast, and it's permanent. Okay, these ones won't be. All right, so that's giving you a little overview of how you could color your fabric. You could use any of them. If you're not going to wash it, you could use any of them. So your colors, you could have color availability very cheaply. Okay, but my project, through my project, I'm going to use the inktense for all of what I'm going to do throughout this project. And the threads that I love to use. Right, I have got a big collection of pearl threads. These are all pearl threads I found at the Opshop. I've got other boxes up there too. This is the second box. Okay, I find them in where is I got a ball. Okay, I find them on balls like this, and I wind them onto some bobbins. Now you could also use the stranded thread, which is a thread that you can split into 6 different threads, and that's what a lot of cross stitches use. I prefer to use the pearl thread because I don't know, I just like one thread, you know, not multiple threads. But that's okay. If you've got stranded threads, that's fine. With this white thread, I have used my inktense blocks in the past to color them, and then you can get whatever color you want with your thread. So that's another great investment if you want to think about buying the inktense colors. I showed a video, I'll try and link it up here, where I dyed these threads. Alright, so that's one type of thread that you can use, and the stranded threads. These ones I bought from Temu, and they are a rayon type thread. They are shiny, they are gorgeous, and I love to use these to do my paint and stitch. They've got a beautiful sheen on them, but they are just a little bit more, not difficult to stitch with, they're just, you need a little bit more patience, because they are slippery, they will come out of the eye of the needle quicker and you find yourself constantly rethreading your needle. But in saying that, they're not hard to get used to. I'm still a beginner with stitching, and I've enjoyed using these rayon threads, and that is what I used on this project. These are all these rayon threads, and they give you not a beautiful little sheen. I don't know whether you can see it in the camera, but the camera doesn't do this justice. It's absolutely gorgeous. Okay, and you can also use beads and sequins and things like that as well, but as a beginner I would just use thread. All right, now if you don't have any of those threads, you could use your cottons. Okay, most of us have got lots of different colors of cotton, and you could use your cottons. I'll show you how. I have seen other people do this, and you could use 3 strands of your cotton. Just put 3 together. And you have a nice, then, just length of thread. Let's put that on our needle. And it's like the stranded stuff, you know. There's nothing wrong with this. I'm going to tie a knot in the end. Like this. Okay. And you have some thread that you can use. This is just normal sewing thread. Right. Now I'm going to talk about some stitches. Running stitch. Okay, I'm just going to put stitches up here. Stitches, okay, we're going to do running stitch. We are going to do back stitch. We're going to do a French knot. We're going to do a pistol stitch. And I think I will do a blanket. We're going to do a chain and a whip. Okay, so these are the basic stitches that we are going to use in this paint and stitch series. I'll show you how to put a knot in the end. You can knot it however you like. What I do is a quilter's knot, so you put your thread, okay, like this with your needle. Put your finger on the needle, wrap it around 3 times, hold that thread on the needle, and then pull your needle back out through. Right, so that is a quilter's knot. Running stitch, come up from the back of the fabric and come up. And running stitch is the easiest stitch that you can do, and all it is you can stab it, or you can go down and up and down and up. Pull that through, and it is going to go in and out and in and out, and you can stab it if you want. Stab it in and stab it out. Okay, it's not hard at all. It's just going in and out of the fabric. Now I am a beginner stitcher, and these are the stitches that I use the most. Okay, we're going to go come back down and go across again. All right, so you can just put your needle in and out and in and out, and that will give you just a running stitch. And it doesn't, you can, if you want to practice it and get really neat at it and do the same size, then go right ahead. I don't even worry about that. My running stitch is all over the place and I don't really care. Okay, so that's running stitch. Right, I'm just going to finish this off at the back, and that thread then is using 3 strands of your just regular sewing thread. Okay, now let's put on some of this actually let's just put on some pearl cotton, some of the pearl that I showed you in this box. And these are all secondhand. They're all different sizes, and actually they're all different types of thread as well. There's cotton, there's rayon, but let's just pick a regular cotton one out of here. I don't even know what size this is, and I don't really care what size it is. I'm one of those stitches that it's just I just want to do it to help me relax and stay happy, and I don't really care about sizes and all that sort of stuff. So if you're a beginner, just grab some thread, just grab a needle that will go through your thread. I'm not fussy with my needles either. I just use a needle that will fit my thread through it. If it fits your thread through it, it's going to go through okay. Right, so the back stitch, I'm coming up from the back of my fabric with a knot on the end. I put a knot on it. Okay, and then you are going to do like this running stitch. You're going to do 1 stitch forward like that. Okay, then you are going to come up away from that stitch Okay, see how I've come up away from that stitch and come up. Then you are going to go back down at the end of this first stitch, like that, to join the line. Then you will come up away from that stitch and you'll come back to that next end of the stitch. That's why it's called back stitch, I suppose. So you're coming back all the time. Right, so you're going to go ahead of that stitch and back to the stitch, to that end of the stitch. Ahead of the stitch and back to the end of the stitch. Now it's okay to do long sort of stitches if you're doing a straight line, but if you're doing a curve you might need to use smaller stitches. I'll show you here. So we're going ahead of the line and back to it, back to that stitch. Going ahead of it and back to it. I'm just showing you how to do a little curve. Going ahead of it and then back to it. So whatever line you've got drawn, you would follow this line, okay? Ahead of it and back to it. Okay, so if you're doing a little curve, you do need to do smaller stitch lengths. Right, I'm going to finish that off here. Right, our next stitch is French knot, and I'm going to try that French knot with some more pearl thread, but I'll do it in a bigger size thread so you can see it. And I may need to grab a bigger needle. We'll see. No, that's gone through, which is good. Right, so we're just going to put a quilter's knot in, hold it like this on our needle, go around 3 times, hold the thread and pull that through, and you've got a nice little knot in the end of your thread. Right, French knots. We come up from the back, okay, and then we grab our thread like this. You go around the needle 3 times. You can go 2 or 3 times. I usually go 3. So we go 1, 2, 3, and hold your thread sort of taut and go back down very close to where you came out. Hold this taut as it goes down and then pull it, and you'll end up with a cute little knot which can add little spots to your stitching if you want little spots on something. Let's do that again. Come back up and we go round 2, 3 round the needle. Put your needle back down in very close to the fabric, to where you came up, and pull that taut, and then put your finger on that so it stays taut, and then pull the thread through like that. Isn't that cool? Let's do another one. Okay, we're going to come up and we're going to go over 1, 2, 3 like that, and put your needle back down close to where you came up. Give that a little pull so the knot goes nice and tight on your thread, and just put your finger on that so that it stays nice and taut, and then pull it through at the back, and you'll have a nice little French knot every time. Okay, just make sure you keep that thread pulled taut. So 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and it depends. If you want a smaller knot, just go over twice and pull that knot nice and tight there. Keep your finger on that thread and then pull your little knot. Alright, and they're your French knots. They're not hard to do, they just take a little bit of practice and you'll get there with it. Okay, our next one is going to be a pistol stitch. Right, here's a thinner type of pearl thread. And let's do some pistol stitch. Now pistol stitch is very similar to the French knot. So if you master the French knot, you will master the pistol stitch. And that makes beautiful little stamens in your flowers if you're stitching some flowers. Okay, that's why I thought I would add pistol stitch on here in case you want to put them in flowers. Right, so we're going to come up from the back once you've got your knot on. Now, like a French knot, we're going to go around this 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. And instead of coming back in right next to where you came out, we're going to go up higher. Okay, so we've got a long little piece of thread going up to our knot. And I'm going to pull on this knot like I did with my French knot and keep that taut, and then pull it at the back. And then it will give you a little long stitch with a French knot type thing on the end, and these look really pretty when you are putting a, like I said, a stamen in a flower. Right, we're going to come back up and we're going to go around once, twice, 3 times, and we're going to go up here. Alright, so put your needle in, pull this extra thread so that the little knot goes tight, and then pull it at the back. Keep your finger on that thread like that. Okay, and I'll do it once more time. You could do this in a hoop too if you feel that it's too hard to do it, to practice in a on just plain fabric. So we come up 1, 2, 3, and we're going to go down higher up. And we're going to pull this thread so it makes that little knot on the end, and then we're going to pull it at the back. Right, now if you're using a friction marker is a pen that will disappear with heat. You could draw these on, you could go like this, okay, and put the dot on the end, and that can help you when you're doing flowers, so that then you can go up here at the bottom, and I know then that I want to stop up here. That's where my knot is to be. So you 1, 2, 3, and you put your needle in at the end of where you've drawn that, and that can help you as well to do your pistol stitch. Right, I'm going to finish this off at the back. Now to get rid of that that mark that I drew, you're just going to put some heat on it. Okay, I'll show you down here. We'll draw a little smiley face with the friction marker, and we just put some heat on it and it's gone. Alright, so it's handy to have one of these. I bought these off Temu as well. You can buy them anywhere, but when I bought them off Temu, they come in, they actually come with just the pen, and then they'll come with like half a dozen of the inners that you change. And yeah, I think I've had one for a while now, and I've only changed it twice, so they last for a fair while. Alright, now we're going to go on and do some blanket stitch. Now I'm going to go back and have a look at these threads in here. I might I love these neons. I love my neons. I'm going to grab some of that neon out. Okay, and this is in case you don't have any threads at all. You can so do this method. Okay, I'm just going to get three strands of that, and that is going to be my sewing thread. Now you've seen I got sent some strands of beautiful cottons, and with all sorts of colours. You can do multiple colours. I got sent some in a Happy Mail, and I did some stitching with that, and it looked awesome. Okay, let's do a blanket stitch. We're going to come up and we're going to go up here. And we're going to keep our needle like we go in and up, but this thread always stays under the needle. Okay, so we go in and up, but this thread always stays at the back like that. Now blanket stitch is usually like an edging stitch. Okay, so up, down and up, but keeping that thread at the back of the needle. So we'll do a stitch here and make sure that thread's behind the needle like that. Okay, and that is a blanket stitch. I hope I explained that. But you know what, if you're finding it hard to understand my stitches, just get on YouTube and find somebody else's as well. You know, just get on there, and that's how I've learnt a lot, is just by learning by watching other people stitch. And there's plenty of how-tos out there. Right, that's a blanket stitch, and that's using 3 threads of just your sewing cotton. Isn't that awesome? So you don't have to have fancy threads. And let's do a chain stitch. This one's a little bit thicker too. Hopefully it'll go through this needle. Yep. I'm not sure what size this needle is. Oh, it's splitting the thread. Like I said, you just find a needle that will go through, get your thread through. Don't pick one that's too big and chunky. Just, I think a rule of thumb is to pick a needle that is a similar width to your thread. I think that's a similar, a sort of a rule of thumb, but don't take my word for that. Go to the experts. I don't even fuss with needles. I just pick a needle that will fit the thread and suits the, will go through the fabric I'm using okay as well. Okay, a chain stitch. Come up at the back. Okay, keep your thread up like that. You're going to go back in very close to where you just came out. Okay, take a length of that. You can do all sorts of lengths, but make sure your thread is at the back of the needle, a little bit like the blanket stitch. And then as you pull that through, it's going to make a little chain. See? Now to do the next chain, you come back in next to where that thread came out, and you do another length, making sure that this thread is always behind the needle, and that's your next chain. Okay, and if you've got a line, you can follow the line, and you take another length, making sure that thread is behind the needle. And we do another chain. Okay, and we go in next to that where that thread came out, and we do another stitch, and then to finish, I'll do one more chain, and we go in there. Don't pull it too tight. Okay, we go in another length, and make sure that thread's behind the needle. Okay, and to finish, we go down on the other side of the chain. Okay, and that is a chain stitch. So we'll finish that off at the back. To finish off, I just like to put my needle in somewhere, go around it twice, hold that little knot and pull it. Now let's get let's try some more thread. I really like trying this. Let's get some of this green. I've got so many threads. I ended up getting a heap from the Opshop, and they're just fun to use. Right, let's get 3 strands of that. And this is just regular sewing thread. Just cut it all off at the same length, and make sure your other end is cut off too. Don't leave any loops in it. Okay, we'll thread that up. And we'll put a quilter's knot in. You can cut it off so it's neat. Right, let's do this with some regular thread, and it is just 3 strands, and yeah, so we're going to do exactly the same as a chain, because when I do my stalks I like to do a chain stitch and then I whip it. So we're doing a chain first, but you can whip just running stitches too. It doesn't have to be a chain stitch. I'm going to show you with a chain stitch, and then I'll show you with just a running stitch as well, how to whip it. So I'm just doing a chain stitch here. Exactly what we just did in the last one, the blue one. I'll do one more chain. I'm doing my chains quite big here so I can show you. Okay, we've got our chain done. We're going to go back down as if we were going to finish it off. Okay, then we're going to come back up somewhere very close, and you're going to get the blunt end of the needle, and we're going to go through those 2 loops, through the 2 loops, back to this side, through the 2 loops, the next 2 loops, back over to this side, through the 2 loops, back over to this side, through the 2 loops, back over to this side, and through the 2 loops. And then when we've finished it, we go back down very close to all the other stitches. and that is a whip stitch, and it gives you like a thicker line, especially when you're doing stems and things. It's a great stitch to have up your sleeve to do. Alright, with my scissors. Alright, now that is a whip stitch on a chain. We'll also do a whip stitch on a running stitch. Okay, so I'll put a running stitch in. Oh, better put a knot on it. Okay, and I'm just going to go in and out and in and out, doing a running stitch. And I'll do it in two colors so that you can see what I'm doing here, so you don't get confused. So if you're doing a whip stitch on a running stitch, there's your running stitch. And let's go get some of this orange that we used before, and we'll whip it with that color. I'll come up through next to our running stitch, go up this end, and then we're just going to do the same thing. We're just going to go through those running stitches and whip it. So with the blunt end, like that, and then finish it off at the back. Oops. Okay, and that is whip stitching a running stitch. So whip stitch is basically just going around and round anything. You could whip stitch your back stitches, you could whip stitch your running stitches, you could whip stitch the top of your blanket stitch if you want, just going in and like over and over and over and over. So a whip stitch is very versatile, and it can give you some thickness in your thread, plus it can give you like a color dimension. Yeah, so that is my basic stitches. If you want to just do some basic paint and stitch, they're my basic color experiments with watercolor, inktense, which is color fast, and acrylic. Remember, these two are not color fast, okay, depending on how you want to use them. But look at the difference. They all give you a different effect, which all in its own situation could look absolutely beautiful. Remember, but with the inktense, you could get your own white thread and dye it any color you want, which would be amazing, and it could match in with your projects. All right, paint up here. That's our paint side of it, and that is our stitch side of it. Okay, so for our stitches, we just did a basic running stitch, which is just in out, so easy. Back stitch, French knot, pistol stitch, blanket stitch, chain stitch, and then the whip stitch. I hope I showed you them okay. If not, just rewind the video, you can watch it again, or if I didn't explain it real well, you can look it up on YouTube and look up somebody else's tutorial too of how to. Right, so that's our basics that we need to paint and stitch. Now, I didn't use any of these rayons on here because I wanted to just give you a look at using different sorts of stitches, threads. The rayons are awesome because they're shiny, they're pretty, but they are slippery. Okay, so if you're just starting out, try with some of these just basic threads first, and then go on to something that's just a little bit more fancy, and yeah, that you can add to your own stitching. All right, so the basics are all put down here now. You need a stencil. You need, well, you don't even need a stencil. You know what? You could paint your own picture and you could stitch over your own picture if you chose to do it that way. Okay, so you will need some sort of stencil or some sort of idea of what you want to put down on your fabric. This fabric here, like I said, it's just a pillowcase from the Opshop. It's just it's a more of a heavyweight cotton. Okay, and then you need to choose your paints, and then whatever threads and needles and all that sort of stuff you need. They're the basics of it, and I hope you can just see that this sort of stuff is easy to do. It's nothing hard to it. Now, my next two videos that will be coming up, we will be stitching a bookmark, and we will be using our running stitch, we will be using our back stitch, we will be using our pistol stitch and our blanket stitch. We'll be using them all. Actually, we'll be using them all. I did put some French knots in it. So yeah, we'll be using all of these stitches in our next video, which will be a little easy bookmark using our paint and stitch method. All right, and then our third video, we will be doing another one of these stencils. Actually, you can see which ones have been colored. This one here we'll do with the bookmark. This one here we are going to do on the third one, and with that one we are going to use another stencil. Now I'm going to show you how to put more dimension into your paint and stitch. Okay, so stick around for that third video. That will be a good one. All right, and in the end of all this, I am going to put one of my paint and stitch on the front of a junk journal, and I'm going to show you how I put that on a cover, and we'll use the bookmark in the paint and stitch journal, and then we're going to use some of these beautiful flowers as edgings on our paper inside our junk journal. Alright, so I will have all the info below where you can get this stencil from. You can just do a search for your inktense pack if you do decide to get them. I ended up finding a good priced one on eBay, so you can look wherever you want for that. But if you already have watercolor paints or acrylic paints, you could use that as well. If you're not going to wash it, then go right ahead and do that. This has got an awesome subtle look, hasn't it? And you can always cover it later with some sort of sealer, okay, if you were scared that it might get wet. Okay, so I think that's all I need to tell you then about our little paint and stitch series. Okay, so I hope you will come along with me. This first one was just to show you all your options, and stick around for my next video on this series. It will be an easy beginner's bookmark, and like I said, my third one will be a easy beginners paint and stitch that you can put on the front of a junk journal, or you could even add it into your own sewing or whatever. Okay, if you're new here, I'd love it if you'd like, share and subscribe, and come along with me. Leave me a comment below. If I've left any information out, please leave me a comment below and ask any questions that you like. And I will see you for a new video, new make, and in the meantime, rug up, keep warm if you're in our corner of the world, and keep crafting, and I'll see you soon. Bye.